time. We're gonna take it home. Let's go. Let's go. Do it. Let's go. Do it. Let's go. Make it happen. Let's go. Where there's a middleman, you'll find a Mets fan. Let's go.
Welcome to Talkin' Mets with Rob. Subscribe to the channel for all your New York Mets in-game live, pre-game, post-game, roundtable podcast, and all the breaking news for our New York Mets. Enjoy the show and let's go Mets.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another Mets Spring Training Report right here on the channel. Hopefully everybody's enjoying their Tuesday, February 25th. We are a few days away until March, and that is the month of Mets baseball season to officially start at the end of the month of March. And we're basically a month away until opening day, and I can't wait for that. But there's so much time in between, and with the big injuries of this team very quickly into spring training, with Frankie Montas going down, with Nick Madrigal going down, and with Sean Manaea going down, the Mets have a lot of work to do to see who is actually going to be in this rotation. Are they going to do the external route? Are they going to do the internal route? Or are they going to do a combination of both? We will definitely get into that during this stream. So make sure you hit that like button, guys, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed already. So today's game was a very interesting game in regards to the offense, right? We've seen Brett Beatty in the lineup today, Luisangel Acuna today, Jesse Winker today. A lot of good signs from all three of them. And, you know, when you're looking at the entire spectrum of everything, it was a very good performance by a lot of these guys. And I really do like to see a lot of these guys, you know, step up, right? We talked about the situation with Luisangel Acuna, about Brett Beatty as a whole. We also looked at the acquisition of Jose Siri, who had a nice game today, and this is what you're going to get from Jose Siri. But to start off, basically the game with your leader hitter, Luisangel Acuna, and it's a really good sign from him because, you know, hitting the ball up the middle, getting the base hit, stealing the bag, you know, getting the errant throw from the catcher, and then advances to third on that bad throw, that error, is a really good sign. That's what Luisangel Acuna, that's what he's known for. He is not going to be a major power hitter, in my opinion. And that is a good sign when you're really looking at what you might be getting if Jeff McNeil happens to not get the job at second base. And that is something that, you know, I still believe Jeff McNeil is going to be the guy, but that's something that we'll talk about in a little bit. But a really good sign from Luisangel Acuna today. Jet Williams replaced him today. He got a hit. He was 1 for 2. Luisangel Acuna was 1 for 3 with an RBI and a run. Really good signs from our young prospects that we really wanted to see. The concerning part, Francisco Alvarez. A lot of people believe, including myself, that he'll have a bounce back season. He actually looks terrible at the plate in the first few games that he has played in spring training. That is very concerning, only because he's doing the same thing he was doing last year, where he wasn't putting the bat on the ball. He is trying to swing. Every swing is trying to hit a ball over the wall. You know, has strikeouts. He's having a okay spring, batting .250, nothing special. But what I saw today, I didn't like. I don't need him to revert back to what he did last year, and that is concerning to me because, again, I talked about, you know, the situation with Jeff McNeil and why the approach of home runs is what he's striving for. And then you look at Alvarez at bats today, trying to swing at every ball and hit it over the fence. You start to wonder about these hitting coaches. What are they doing with these guys? Because Jeff McNeil is not a home run hitter. Yet, for 3 years now, they've been trying to make him a home run hitter, or Jeff McNeil has been too stubborn to not go back to what was making him successful, and that was a high average guy, high on base guy, getting on base for the guys in front of you. And again, Jeff McNeil's not going to hit 25 plus home runs. So making him a home run hitter from a 10 home run guy to a 15 home run guy doesn't excite anybody. It doesn't help the team. Yeah, everybody's going to say, well, 5 extra home runs will help the team. Kind of. Right? I'd rather have him on base more for guys that would come up after him, like a Jose Siri, maybe even like a Francisco Alvarez, depending on, a Jesse Winker, depending on where you're going to bat Jeff McNeil in the lineup, which is probably going to be somewhere around 7th in the lineup. So he's probably going to bat, in front of a Jose Siri, in front of a Jesse Winker, most likely, or even right behind Jesse Winker. I want to see Jeff McNeil get on base. And this approach by coaches for certain players is not making me excited about a guy like Francisco Alvarez, who what he can be capable of. It just seems like he is far from that. And that's concerning because the Mets need Francisco Alvarez to be that 20 plus, 25 plus, 25 home run guy. And that's what we need. We need power from Francisco Alvarez. We need him to hit the ball over the wall. But we also don't need him swinging at every pitch and trying to drive the ball out of the ballpark. Have a 250 average with 25 home runs. That's what I'm looking to see from Francisco Alvarez. So he does have a 250 average in spring. I did not like his at-bats today. He was swinging out of his shoes in the game today. And again, it's one game that it was really obvious that he was swinging out of his shoes, but I just don't like that sign when it comes to Francisco Alvarez. But player of the game, Brett Baty, looking really good. He was 2 for 3 today with a run and an RBI. He also had a home run, which is really nice to see. He drove a breaking ball over the wall today. That is a good sign. But again, I need to calm everybody down with Brett Baty stats in the minor leagues. We've seen this story before. I am concerned about Brett Baty with Major League pitching. He's still seeing a ton of minor league pitching. It's not, he was seeing a guy that just pitched for the first time in spring training who, was very good for the Astros last year, but it was his first outing, right? And he's seen more minor league pitching today. I worry about what he does in spring because too many people get hyped over that and think that he can automatically do it at the major league level against elite and very good major league pitching. It's a whole new ballgame when they're trying to actually, not work on pitches like they are in spring training and actually trying to get you out with their best pitches. I'm not getting crazy about Brett Baty. I am just not. Until I see it at the major league level. And again, the way you get on the roster on opening day is doing what he's doing in spring training. So I'm not killing him for doing what he's supposed to do in spring training, but it's not going to excite me that he makes the team as a super utility guy. That's why he's playing a little short, second, third. He's going to be that Jose Iglesias type. They seem to like him in that role. But temper your enthusiasm with Brett Baty. He scares the hell out of me when it comes to actually doing it at the major league level. Now, what I also am concerned about is the fact that he's not going to be a starter. He is not going to start on this team on opening day. So the at-bats that he's getting now in spring training, how is he going to adjust sitting on the bench for 6 innings, maybe getting a pitch in appearance, maybe get a start here and there, once or twice a week during the week? Can he handle that? We see him, beating the ball up all over spring training, but that's when he's getting a ton of at-bats. What is it when you only get, 8 at-bats in a week and maybe 1, possibly 2 starts in a week? And that's a stretch, right? When you're a super utility guy, you might come in later in ball games for defensive purposes or pinch hit in a bigger spot. You're not going to see, consistent at-bats on the regular. That's the problem that I'm worried about with Brett Baty because he's never had to do that in his career. right? Through high school, through college, through the minors. He's got a ton of at-bats. He's been in games. He's been a starter. Now, maybe the only way to make this team is to figure out how you can actually be that super utility guy and not play every day and still be successful when called upon. I don't know, right? But again, Brett Beatty is doing his job. He's playing well in spring. That's a start, right? Right now he is batting 625. Again, let's not go crazy here, but he's having a good spring so far. And again, the way to make the major league roster is to perform well in spring training. And before spring training even started, it was obvious that the Mets are looking at Luisano Acuna and Brett Beatty as a possible roster additions to help this 2025 team started on opening day. So this is not a shock here where, the Mets aren't really looking at Brett Beatty and Brett Beatty's opening up some eyes. They've been talking about Brett Beatty. They've been shoving him down our throats basically since the winter meetings about Brett Beatty. And, similar to Luisano Acuna, where Mendoza said that he's going to be a big part of this team in 2025. So Brett Beatty is not going to excite me until I actually see him do it at the major league level. So he can be batting 1,000 in spring training and, look like, Barry Bonds at the plate. Until I see it on a consistent basis at the major league level, it's not going to excite me. But again, he is doing his job. What he has to do to make this team is actually look competent in spring training. And again, we all know what Brett Beatty does well. Looks good in spring training. Looks good against minor league pitching. We'll see if that translates into what the Mets are trying to make him be. Again, Beatty's getting a ton of at-bats already in spring. So, he's not going to be getting at the major league level on this roster unless there's major injuries. And even if it's an injury or a lack of performance from like a Jeff McNeil, you're not putting Brett Beatty to start second base over Luisano Acuna. You're just not doing that. So until I see Brett Beatty actually turn into a super utility guy and, has progress in that role, I just can't get excited about that. The other good news was Jose Siri. This is what you're getting from Jose Siri. You're getting elite defense. We already know that. You're going to get monster shots like you seen today in spring training and, that pimp job after he hit the ball. But you're not going to get a high average. You're hoping with a guy like Juan Soto in his presence. You notice how Juan Soto kind of gravitated towards Jose Siri very early in spring training and during workouts. You hope that, little birdie in Jose Siri's ear helps him, takes more pitches, makes him work counts a little bit more. I'm not saying to get your average up to 250, 260, but if you can get it up to 230, 240 from a 198 to 210 that you have been hitting, that's a huge difference for a guy that can hit 20 home runs. That's where we are with Jose Siri, but it's a good sign from Jose Siri because that's what you're going to get from. You're going to get elite defense and you're going to get monster power shots. That's what you're going to get from Jose Siri. Again, it's yet to be determined if he can hit a little bit more for average. Again, I'm not asking him to bat 250, 260 here. Give me 220, 230. That is 15 to 20 points more than what you have been doing average-wise. That is a huge difference. I know it's not exciting for people, but in a league now that doesn't care about average, jumping up 15, 20 points on your average is a huge difference, especially where Jose Siri is going to bat in this lineup, and that's the bottom of the order. So good sign from Jose Siri with the power. That's what you're going to see. You're going to get the swag. You're going to get the confidence. You're going to get the attitude. And I do like Jose Siri. He can be a little bit of a hothead for sure. And, can, jump off at people at times. But you need that type of attitude. You need another guy like a Jesse Winker and Jose Siri that those two guys, if anything, breaks down and everything's, things start to get a little heated against another team, you know who the first people are going to be in front of everybody else? It's going to be Jesse Winker and Jose Siri. I don't think you want to be in a dark alley with one of those guys or both of those guys in front of you. That's a little scary. So you need that attitude. You need them guys that teams just hate They're not the best players on the team, but they are the role players. They are important figures on this role. And I think that's what Jesse Winker will be, and that's what Jose Siri will be. And that is something that, those two guys are like a tag team, Winker and Jose Siri. You don't want to, mess with those guys in a bad spot. So the good news is that Jesse Winker as well today got a hit today. He hit when I believe down the left field line, if I'm not mistaken. Jose Siri with the pimp shot, power shot that as soon as he hit it, you knew it was out. Good signs from Luis Acuna getting a base hit, stealing a base, and taking that extra bag on the errant throw. Brett Baty is doing Brett Baty things in spring training where he's just killing the ball right now. He hit a home run today off of a hanging breaking ball. A lot of good signs from these guys. But once again, right, when it's guys like Brett Baty, we've seen him do it at the minor league level. We've seen him destroy minor league pitching. It's when, we call these guys quadruple A players. Why? Because they beat up on minor league pitching in double A and triple A and all throughout the minor leagues. And then when they get to the major leagues and they face, much better pitching, because that's what it is, right? It's much better pitching than the minors. Even if guys that have a 4.5 ERA are better than guys in the minor leagues, and they're getting you out because their stuff is just that much better. And Brett Baty cannot handle that. Again, I go back to Brett Baty once again because he is a guy, the Mets could be just talking him up to make him as trade bait. And I'm fine with that, right? The Yankees, Cashman is a masterclass in hyping his prospects up, right? Durbin, who half the Yankee fan base didn't even know who he was. Cashman was talking all about him, at his, all of his press conferences in the offseason, and basically turned him into Devin Williams. So the good news is that Baty is playing well. Maybe his he can actually a little bit of his, level, put up his level a little bit where it might open up an eye or two on other teams that might be interested in Brett Baty, if not during the spring training, but at the trade deadline. That's something that you have to look at. But again, I go back to the same thing. Guys that you might have to trade, like a Brett Baty, like a Luis Acuna, are guys that the Mets are looking to help this team. If Brett Baty and Acuna find a way to make the team together and they're helping this team, we all know what the major needs of this team is, and that's going to be starting pitching. Who do you think they're going to ask for? Luis Acuna and Brett Baty probably as part of a package. Are you going to take away from the success that you're having with those guys on your roster and trade them away to get the starting pitching you're going to desperately need? I don't know. And that's the problem that I have a concern about not going after Burns, not going after Fried, because I know Burns, everybody's saying, oh, well, he always wanted to go back home, go back to Arizona. I understand it, but the Mets were never in on him. You know what? What if the Mets blew him away with an offer? He's going to turn down $40, $50 million more to go back home? Yeah, he might have, but the Mets were never in on him. The same thing with Max Fried. They were never in on these guys. That was frustrating. So the issue is, I don't know, and people always talk about, oh, the trade deadline. Oh, they'll do what they need to do at the trade deadline. Have we seen this story before, guys? Have we? I've talked about this before, especially during the offseason, during Mets Hot Stoves, that Chris can account to this. Just go back the last 10 years, right? Go back it's 2025. Go back from 2015 all the way until now. How many times have the Mets actually went for it and bite the bullet and trade prospects, or trade their top prospect, or trade multiple prospects to bring in legitimate talent at the deadline? When have they done that? Right? They did it in 2015. They got Yoenis Cespedes, right? They got a bullpen arm or two and a couple of utility guys, and Kelly Johnson, Juan Uribe, with Cespedes, a couple of bullpen arms, and we were off and running, right? It was a very good offseason. But that was so far and few between That just go back, right? 2016 with all the injuries, right? They basically had all their top pitching prospects up in this rotation, but they didn't do enough at the deadline to make themselves better. They ended up being a wild card team and losing in the wild card, right? 17, 18, 19, 20, right? Steve Cohen era. Even during the Steve Cohen era, I go back to 2022, right? They were one of the best teams in baseball, and Billy Epler wasn't willing to give up prospects to bring in a legitimate bat in here. I'm sorry. You could have found a better bat than Vogelback, Darren Ruff, and Naquin. I'm sorry. You could have. That's the issue. And I'm not saying, a Josh Bell or a JD Martinez at the time would have made the difference of the collapse during the 2022 season. But we don't know that because it didn't happen. Josh Bell on a New York Mets team that was one of the better offenses in baseball at the time and one of the best teams in baseball could have made a tremendous difference. Josh Bell or JD Martinez, right? I'm sorry. Those guys are better than Daniel Vogelback and Darren Ruff. They are. And they didn't go and do it. They went on the lower end of what bats were available and brought in a subpar pitcher in the bullpen. That's basically all they did on a team that was one of the best teams in baseball at the time. And it just didn't make sense to me. And then you wonder why that when you needed reinforcements, when you needed that bat, when you started to struggle offensively, when Marte went down was a major blow to the lineup in 2022. Who knows if JD Martinez could have kept that offense a little bit, kept it afloat. And until Marte came back, it was starting to dwindle. And again, I just went back 10 years. Don't let me go back 25 years when the Mets seemed to never do what they needed to do at the deadline to make their team absolutely better. They always did a little bit, just enough to shut up Met fans, but it actually ended up being not enough, right? I'm not going to go crazy last year about what they did at the deadline because of the fact that it was Stern's first year. It was supposed to be an evaluation year of his prospects, of the team. So I wasn't going crazy why David Stearns didn't go a little bit further and getting exactly what this team needed and better talent to acquire to help this team. They were still around 5-6 games or so out of a playoff spot. So I understand not going above and beyond because they weren't one of the better teams. They were red hot, but they weren't one of the better teams record-wise. So I can understand not going above and beyond. But again, what was the detriment of this team? It ended up being the pitching. We didn't do enough at the deadline with pitching. We got Paul Blackburn. Not excited. He probably wasn't going to pitch many games in the playoffs anyway. So that is the issue that always annoys me when people say, well, we'll do it at the deadline. All right. I don't care if it's Stearns. I don't care if it's Epler. I don't care if it's Sandy Alderson. I don't care if it was goddamn Steve Phillips. All right. They always spit the bid for the majority of the time, regardless of who you bring in and what you do during the offseason, right? When you have a glaring need, you try to get the best available or the next best available, not the lower tier because you're afraid to trade a prospect and thinking he might be freaking Barry Bonds for crying out loud. Who cares what they become? Because if that one guy you get puts you over the top, and how many times have we seen deadline acquisitions being a crucial role in runs in the playoffs and World Series titles? You want me to go back the last couple of seasons? Right? Let's go back to last year. How important was Jack Flaherty to the Los Angeles Dodgers in the playoffs last year, in the World Series last year? Right? Huge, wasn't it? Like we act like and it was a good trade, but it wasn't massive. It was a tier B, not even a tier A guy, even though you could see Flaherty being that, but he's a tier B guy. Right? When was the last time the Mets brought in a Jack Flaherty type? They didn't, right? The Mets could have got Jack Flaherty. right? How different he would have been pitching for the Mets other than the Dodgers against us. And we would have had Jack Flaherty against them. Could have made a difference. Not saying it would have, but you don't know until you try it. We've always did just a little, just enough to shut up the fan base. And then when the thing that actually causes us to lose is the one thing that we could have done at the trade deadline. And it always annoys me. Well, yeah, Chris, I'm not worried about right now. Right now, it is what it is. Your roster is probably going to be what it is. Maybe Jose Quintana will come in. We'll see. But at the same time, it still goes back to the same thing, in my opinion, right? Doing what you need to do at the deadline to make your team better, right? You don't know. It's, when the season starts, you got April, May, and all of June and most of July, all of July. You got 4 months of baseball, between 95 and 100 games of baseball. You're going to clearly know what you're going to need. Obviously, right now, it looks like you need starting pitching. But say if the pitchers that we have in our rotation, right, Manaea comes back and he pitches well, right? You have Cannon and McGill and Blackburn. Let's say they're adequate. They're average, which, they're going to be the 4, 5, 6 starters if there is a 6-man rotation, right? Let's say Kodai Senga pitches okay, and the rotation's serviceable. Right, we're winning games. The offense and the bullpen are doing their job, and the rotation is not killing us. Let's say that. You're still going to need a rotation guy, probably a pretty good one. Right, there's a pretty good chance there's a few of them going to be on the market like always. But we act like the Mets are the only team that's going to need starting pitching, and that's the other thing, right? When it only takes money to bring in better talent in the rotation, you do it because one. All they talk about is freaking prospects and holding on to their prospects and loving their farm system. Well, if you spend the money, you don't have to give up prospects at the deadline or in the offseason to make a trade. That's the problem. Like, you can't – this is the philosophy that Stearns is doing with the rotation that I do not like. You don't want to spend the money on legitimate starting pitching, but you also don't want to trade your prospects for starting pitching, legitimate starting pitching. How are you going to get anybody good? Sean Manaea is an obvious choice, but that's one. But that's something that was easy to handle because Manaea wanted to come back. He took less money to come back, right? If he was, money hungry and didn't care where he was going, he kind of took more money, and the Mets would have been asked out on that as well. So it's not like David Stearns was a magician in that. Because if Manaea wanted to be a real, jerk and says, you know what, I want 4 years, there would have been someone out there that probably already had, I think there was 2 offers that he had that had 4 years on it. And he took a Mets deal because he wanted to come back. That's not the magician of David Stearns. That's not the smarts of David Stearns. That's just a pitcher that wanted to be here, and you got it for a decent price. Like And what else did David Stearns do in the rotation? He brought in Frankie Montas, who has been often injured the last couple of seasons and not very good. You bring in you trade last year for Paul Blackburn, who is at the the bottom of your rotation. You're not expecting him to do anything special. You're hoping for Peterson, and you bring in Clay Holmes, who's been a reliever most of his career. Like the concept and the philosophy doesn't seem like it works. It just doesn't, right? I'm sorry. Go back to the playoffs last year. Even the Brewers had Freddie Peralta pitching. I know the Mets won game 1, but they still had an ace on the mound. Even a team that people don't think a lot of in the Brewers, right? Go look at the Cubs rotation. It's better than the Mets rotation, right? So it's like we just don't understand. The philosophy does not make sense. You don't want to spend on legit starting pitching, but you also don't want to trade prospects in your farm to bring in legit starting pitching. I just don't understand the logic here, right? You can get Dylan Cease. You probably can get Luis Castillo, right? If I'm not saying to give 4 top 7 prospects, but what all the rumors that we've been hearing was that they want 4 top 20 prospects. Why can't the Mets do that for Dylan Cease? Why can't they do that? Why do you have to wait until 4 months of the season, the last 60 games of the year at the trade deadline, and only get and trade while you might save one prospect? You might have to give 3 instead of 4, and you get Dylan Cease only here for what, 12, 13 starts? Instead of the 30 you could have got if you got him in the offseason? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, having Dylan Cease for 30 starts or 12 starts could mean a difference between 3 and 5 games. That is huge when you have a National League as competitive as it is, as the National League East as competitive as it is, where you'd be fighting for every single win in the National League against the Braves and the Phillies. That's how close this could be. That's the difference. Would you rather have Dylan Cease pitching in your rotation? Or would you rather have a Paul Blackburn or a Tyler McGill or a Griffin Cannon in big games? It's just a fact. So the concept and the philosophy doesn't make any sense. You're not willing to spend for legit starting pitching. You're not willing to trade your guys from your farm system to get legit starting pitching. You're going for the tier C guys on the market that have not been good, have been often injured. And on top of that, you bring in a reliever and trying to make him a starter, which we still don't know if he's going to be successful. And you're counting on him big time now with the injuries to Montas and Manaea. Like, this is what you put yourself in. And I'm not saying that if you would have got Corbin Burns or Max Fried, they wouldn't have went down with an injury. But the fact is, if you had a legit ace or legit top starter that could actually be in this rotation, that Montas injury nobody would have cared. But you know why the Montas injury was important? Because he can throw 160, 170 innings. And now that Manaea is down for at least a month, you hope a month, he might miss 3 or 4 starts, you hope. If you would have brought in a top-level guy other than Manaea, that Manaea going down wouldn't be as detrimental as it is right now when you're counting on a guy like Kodai Senga to be your ace and pick up the ball on opening day, who didn't pitch last year except for 7 innings. And then, oh, by the way, your number 2 starter is probably either Clay Holmes or David Peterson. I'm sorry. There isn't a confidence level there for me with the rotation. Like, I just don't get it. So the Sean Manaea injury is a big deal, right? It is a right oblique strain. We know how difficult obliques are, right? Some people, they can heal pretty well with just rest and some therapy. Some takes longer than others. Unfortunately for the New York Mets, it's a pitcher with oblique injury where, here's the thing. Let's say he misses the month of April, right? You got to ramp him back up. You got to get those innings up, those pitches up. Fine. Do you really think that it's going to go balls to the wall with Sean Manaea for the first 2 months? No, they're going to be very careful with him. So what does that mean? Your ace of the staff already, who you're going to need innings out of, you're not going to be able to let him go the innings you would like to go and the pitches you would like to go. You know why? Because he's just coming back from injury. You're not going to overdo it for the first month or 2 of the season, maybe even longer. And oh, by the way, what if your rotation isn't doing well and now you need Manaea and you're going to stretch him out a little more, stretch him a little more, and push him a little bit more? There's no guarantee he won't re-injure that injury or hurt something else. Like, that is the logic here. This is the problem. This is what the pitching lab doesn't solve. It might tell you how to throw a pitch, what type of mechanics, what pitches are best to throw, but it doesn't prevent you from this situation. And that's the problem. And Ken, if you don't want to be negative, that's fine. Don't be negative. But to act like this rotation isn't going to be a problem, you guys are insane if you don't believe that. I have no problem with you having confidence in other areas of the team. But we've seen what a subpar rotation could lead to. I mean, we can't lose games because of our rotation. And if the offense struggles just a little bit, we're very much in trouble. You hope the offense And again, I always talk about runs per game. If you can average between 5.5 and 6.5 runs per game, you have a pretty good shot. But again, when you have guys that are coming back from injury, you have guys that hasn't been a starter in 6 years in your rotation that you're really counting on. That's a dangerous game to play. You're really playing with fire here. And that Sean Manaea injury is a huge deal. And Chris, I agree with you. I'm 7-10 is a little, nuts. But, yeah, you can win games 6-5, 7-6, right? It's a win's a win. But it's not, and Ken, I'm not always negative. Injuries notwithstanding, no, this is a problem. I've been talking about this rotation prior to the injuries. If you had confidence in this rotation, you're a fool. Because the same people who don't want to trade prospects, who don't want to give long-term deals to pitchers, good pitchers, are the same ones that are going to be complaining when the rotation is losing games because they're not pitching well. They're the same people that are going to be bitching and moaning. Well, you can't have it both ways. The same thing I'm talking about with David Stearns. And Ken, you've killed David Stearns this whole offseason, right? We all know he didn't get the Soto deal done, right? What else did he do that was really exciting? Nothing. And Ken, you were killing David Stearns this whole offseason. So Mr. Negativity, welcome back. Sorry, right? I'm not going to spill positivity when there is no positive in this rotation. I'm sorry to say. There is not one confidence pitcher I'm confident in this rotation where you can give me a legitimate answer or facts telling me why I should be confident in this rotation with the injuries that we have. Where I wasn't even that confident with a healthy rotation. I wasn't confident. Because we were trying the 6-man rotation to protect Kodai Senga, but because of the injuries, there's a possibility the Mets can't go to 6-man because that means Griffin Cannon is your 6th starter. So that's the issue. 4 through 6 is an absolute disaster. And then when McGill can't get out of the 3rd inning, and Blackburn is doing what Paul Blackburn does, and Griffin Cannon can barely stay on a major league rotation that has a ton of injuries, and he can barely stay afloat. Then we're going to be like, oh, look, the rotation's a problem. Well, congratulations. I've been telling you that from the jump. So, unfortunately, maybe the Mets could bring in Jose Quintana again. Again, don't hold your breath. But I hope they do that because it will help. Is it going to solve the issue? Probably not, but it will help. But again, I've been talking about this the whole time. I'm sorry. I'm not being positive over something that, do you want me to lie and be positive? You just want me to be positive just to make you feel better? No. I tell you how it is, even if you don't like it. The rotation's a problem. If you don't want to believe that, then that's on you. But you'll be the first one to complain when Tyler McGill can't get out of the 2nd inning. When Kodai Senga, even if he might be pitching well, is gone after the 4th inning because they're protecting him. And then when the bullpen is being overused because these pitchers aren't very good and you're not stretching them out and you don't trust them to go deep into games, even into the 5th or 6th inning, because of the fact that you're worried about their injuries and trying to keep them healthy, you're going to burn your whole bullpen out in the first half of the season. And we've seen that story last year when you burn out your bullpen. Guys got injured. Guys got tired. And then when you really needed them, guess what? They were done. They ran out of gas. That's the problem. That is the problem. Ken, you can look at the baseball quote all you want with Pete Alonso. Right? That's great. But I don't care what he did in 2022. That's irrelevant. The same reason where we were even talking about it and we agreed, right? I don't care what Frankie Montas did in 2022. He had really good numbers in 2022. Does that matter in 2025? No. Right? I do believe Pete Alonso is going to have a better season than last year. But that does not mean that I have all the confidence in the world in Pete Alonso because we've seen how mentally destroyed he was and how bad his offensive numbers were with runners on base. That was a huge problem. And if the Mets didn't make the playoffs, guess who we would have blamed? Because 95% of Met fans were done before that home run in Milwaukee. Yeah, by the way, Peterson, nobody wanted Peterson in this rotation. So let's not act like, again, we're going on 1 year, and that's fine. Listen, I'm okay with Peterson in the lineup. He deserves to be in this rotation. In this rotation. He deserves to be there. But again, we're talking about another guy who was coming off of injury, throwing a ton of innings last year because we needed him. Why do we just assume that he can do it again? Like, that's what I don't understand. Do you think Sean Manaea got hurt because just randomly? No. What did he do last year that he hasn't done in the majority over the last couple of seasons? He hasn't thrown that many innings in the last 4 seasons that he did last year. And he also changed his mechanics. What do you think the body's going to do? The body's going to end up doing what it does. It has issues. When you've been throwing one way your whole life and you change it, your body takes time to adjust to that. And then on top of that, you're throwing a ton of innings that you haven't done in multiple years. That's a problem. Oh, Aaron Nola? I mean, he isn't great, but he's better than everybody else that we have other than Sean Manaea. That's a fact, right? Again, Kodai Senga's healthy right now. I'm glad he's healthy. Right? I hope he pitches well. But again, we're acting like he's going to stay healthy, right? Freak injuries or not. They're freak injuries, right? We'll see. Ken, I agree with you. 2023 was a solid season, but he also was a problem during that time as well. Go back to his, again, when you only go to home runs and you only go to RBIs and don't look at the real problems that Pete Alonso had, and I talked about this, how many home runs were irrelevant that when the Mets were completely out of the playoffs? And his best numbers were in August and September when the Mets were completely out of it. And again, Pete Alonso, again, he was part of the problem in 2022, right? He had really good numbers, but guess what? When it got down to the nitty gritty, and Starlin Marte went out, who did you look to turn to put them on their shoulders? Pete Alonso. He did not do it. He had terrible numbers in September when Marte went down. Marte was your best run producer when it came to guys on base. He was just outstanding. He was one of your best hitters. When Marte went down, you looked for Pete Alonso. You looked for Brandon Nimmo, right? Those numbers were terrible from those guys in those spots. Yeah, you just went back to 2023. I'm going back to last year. That's what I care about. Right? Last year matters because it's the closest to this year. 2024 and 2025 are back to back, if you didn't understand. That is the fact. The fact is, I don't care what he did in 2023. The same reason why I don't care about 2021 when he had one of his worst seasons before last year. That is irrelevant to me. What he did last year matters more for what he might do this year. And again, I'm not saying Pete Alonso is going to have a similar season. I've been saying it for a while. I think he's going to have a better season. But we're not talking about the offense right now because I'm not worried about the offense. Because if Pete Alonso hides in his hole, I know Juan Soto is going to be the one to step up. I know Francisco Lindor is going to be the one that steps up. I'm hoping Nimmo's healthy because Nimmo is a badass. Nimmo is a guy that can hobble on one leg and still find a way to get a double in the gap. Why do I always assume they would be bad? You know why? Because of history. That's why, right? I don't believe that this rotation is going to completely, downgrade this whole team, right? But it's going to hurt. Right? You hope the offense picks up the slack and the bullpen picks up the slack. But again, all you're going to do is burn out the bullpen that is going to be heavily used for the first 2 months of the season. And then when you overuse the bullpen, we see it every year. They break down. So we should hit 70 RBIs, but they will be important. Yeah. when you break down the real numbers, right? When you look at Pete Alonso's numbers, 38, 34 home runs, what is he, 89 RBIs, it looks nice, but break it down. The numbers weren't good where he hit those home runs. I'm sorry. When it's an 8-0 game and you hit a 2-run homer and the game is basically over, that home run doesn't matter. And Pete Alonso hit a lot of those last year. And the majority of his RBIs came on home runs. And again, when you only have 6 home runs out of those 34 that were in crucial situations, that's not good. That means the other 28 were in non-crucial situations. Yeah, Ken, I agree. But guess what? The fact that, and again, I didn't say Marte was good last year. Marte was injured, right? But again, Alonso played 162, but you know what? I give him a clap for being on the field, but you weren't good at the plate. That's a problem. You were terrible, right? He was one of the reasons we almost missed the playoffs. That's a fact. All right, here we go, guys. So when it comes to Manaea and who replaces him, again, I already gave you the names. McGill, Cannon, Paul Blackburn, possibly Jose Quintana. We'll see. I don't think so, but who knows, right? But you're looking at your 4, 5, 6 being Tyler McGill or Paul Blackburn, Tyler McGill, and Griffin Cannon. Oh, by the way, Paul Blackburn had an injury last year. I know it was a unique, weird injury, but that takes time to come back from. He didn't barely throw. He didn't throw. The last month of the season. Once we got him, I think he pitched like 5 games for us, 4 or 5 games. So he was out. So he's another one that you hope stays healthy. Tyler McGill, nobody wants to see him in this rotation. Not only is we don't want to see him in this rotation, but go back to every year of his career. He actually got hurt as well. So yippee, another guy we have to hope stays healthy and could survive a bad rotation. And Griffin Cannon is, Griffin Cannon. Congratulations. You get to see him too. So that's what you're seeing right now. No, I don't think the staff will be so bad. Well, again, let them prove me wrong. I will be here if they prove me wrong. That's the thing. You think I'm saying this so I can be right? Absolutely not. I hope I'm completely wrong. And Ken, you can come on here and bash me all you want. And I would like it. You know why? Because we're winning. I can give a shit if I'm wrong. Okay, his career here was stellar. That's great. That's wonderful. And by the way, he wasn't in his career. His numbers always been not very good in his career. Again, go back to Chris's channel. He broke down Pete Alonso's career when it comes to runners in scoring position. Weren't very good. Weren't terrible, but when you see Pete Alonso's numbers, they should be better. That's the problem. No, thank God he wasn't judged in October. Thank God. But again, I never questioned Pete Alonso's ability in the playoffs. The limited amount he's played well. I've never killed him for that. But again, you also got to get to the playoffs. And Pete Alonso was almost one of the reasons why we didn't get there. Because, again, where was Pete Alonso the last 2 weeks of the season? It was all Brandon Nimmo. It was all Vientos. It was all Francisco Lindor. Yeah, I did give him credit. I gave him credit for the playoffs. He has very good numbers in the playoffs. Haven't killed him on that. Right? But when you have a career, when people look at, oh my God, 42 home runs, 110 RBIs, there's a lot of in-betweens. Right? When you don't do well in runners in scoring position, when you don't do well with runners on base, and it's glaring. This has been over a 3-year span. Regardless of the home runs and the RBIs, you got to break it down. You have to look deep. That's why I always keep on referencing Chris's video with Pete Alonso. And again, Chris does a good job with other players as well. So it's not just pulling out Pete Alonso. Ken, you brought up Pete Alonso. I didn't. I said he was going to be better. I've been saying he's going to be better than last year. Now, hopefully the runners in scoring position and the runners on base are better, because we're going to have the same conversation once again. But what I've seen from Pete Alonso this spring, very early, but he's been going to the opposite field. When Pete Alonso is at his best, that's where he hits the ball, to right center field. He's been doing that in spring training, which is a good sign. Now, does that translate to the season? I freaking hope so. Because if he can take that outside pitch and drive it to right center instead of trying to pull it and grounding it to short, and taking that double, taking that base hit instead of striking out or grounding out, that's the difference between a 240 average and a 260 average. Now, 20 points of an average. I know people don't care about average nowadays, but that's a huge difference when you hit 40 home runs and 100 RBIs. Huge. That puts you on all-star caliber level. That makes you one of the better hitters in baseball. But let's see that, right? Pete Alonso is what, a 260 career hitter? He was a completely different hitter last year, and even in 2023. Every year, the strikeouts have went up. The on-base has gone down. The average dropped. Yeah, last year, the home runs dipped. The RBIs dipped. Everything dipped. Now, I think the home runs and the RBIs can get up. But I need to see more bat to ball when you're not hitting home runs. That's the biggest concern with Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso can go to sleep and hit a home run. But when you got a runner on first and you got to drive a pitch in the gap to get him home, and you're rolling over a pitch on the outside corner because you were trying to pull it, which he did a lot last year, or striking out on a pitch on the outside corner because you were trying to pull off on it and you missed it, that doesn't benefit you. That doesn't move the runner around. That's the thing. Yeah, I always talk clutch. I talked about it with Pete Alonso last year. Lindor's my guy, but he was a problem early on in the season. But you know what? For the last 6 months, 5 months of the season, he was one of the best players in baseball, right? I'm not going to destroy Nimmo. He was basically hobbling. I mean, he had injury after injury, right? I think Brandon Nimmo is going to be fine. He's got to stay healthy because Brandon Nimmo, he was basically playing on one foot late in September into the playoffs and was still doing a pretty good job. I didn't expect much from Brandon Nimmo because, his basically foot was probably burning the whole time with the plantar fascia, but we'll see. We shall see. All right, here we go. Hold on 1 second. I'm just checking the comments, guys. Give me a second. Yeah, and yeah, guys. Yeah, he did. That is so funny, though. Truman, that's a great one. I see everybody laughing about that. Yeah, good luck with MVP numbers. He's not getting there. He's not, right? I believe me, Ken, I hope he hits 260, 270 with the 40-plus bombs and 100-plus RBIs. If he does that, he'll probably get a couple of MVP votes. I don't think he'd be in the top 2 or 3, but he'll get MVP votes for sure. But, again, let's do it. $30 million a year, you damn right he better do it. He better do it, right? And I hope so. But, yeah, Truman's right? When David Stearns doesn't know what to do, he gets an outfielder. And, again, Caminero is not technically a failed prospect, right? In the little amount of games he ups with the Cubs, he had decent numbers, right? I'm not sure what happened with him and the Cubs, but the Mets traded for him for cash considerations. People think that it's a bigger thought process of, David Stearns is gonna, sign Jose Quintana or trade Marte or something like that, and it might have something to do with why they got Caminero. I don't know. I mean, I don't think David Stearns is the genius everybody thinks he is, but maybe there's something more in the works. Maybe they are on the verge of trading Marte. But again, I don't think Marte is going to play a huge role. But even when Marte has been hurt, when he's played, he's been clutch, right? It's hard to lose that. Because, again, go back to the playoffs. Marte had one of the better numbers in the playoffs. Late in September, Marte was one of our better hitters, right? I wanted Marte up in big spots because he got the job done, right? You want to talk about the Milwaukee series, go back to game 1. Go back to even game 3. Marte also got a big hit after the Alonso home run. So, and Ken, I 100% agree with you with Brandon Nimmo. right? I don't need 25, 30 home runs, right? I feel like Brendan Nimmo was trying to hit too many home runs and it hurt his average and his on base. He gives me 280 on base. I'm sorry, 280 average, 380 on base, 20 home runs. That's great because where he's going to be batting in the lineup, it's going to be very important to do that. It's going to be very important to do that. That's what I want. I don't need him batting 240, 250 and have a couple of more home runs, but your on base is down, your strikeouts are up. And that's another thing with Nimmo that kind of annoyed me. His strikeouts are up. Brendan Nimmo don't strike out much. And because he's been trying to hit more home runs, the strikeouts are going up. The average has dipped. And for all the people that don't care about strikeouts and average, which is the stupidest thing ever when you don't care about that, you don't help the team by not putting the bat on the ball. When you strike out, nothing happens. I'd rather you take a walk than striking out. And average obviously doesn't have nothing to do with walking, but it still helps your team. It takes it out away, and you also end up on base. So we'll see how it goes when it comes to the Manaea situation. We have the names at the moment internally. It's Blackburn, McGill, Cannon. Can't wait for that when the season starts. Hopefully maybe they will get Jose Quintana. I'd like that. Just to help it a little bit. Quintana's not going to be amazing, but he gives you consistency, and that's what you need in this rotation right now with the ton of question marks you already have, along with the guys that nobody wants to see in the rotation in Blackburn, McGill, and Cannon. All right, guys, so let's talk about McNeil here. Jeff McNeil hasn't done anything in spring. He's changed his bat, trying to hit home runs. He talked about it right before spring training started that he's looking to hit more home runs. Again, somebody's got to punch this guy in the face and wake him up because it does not make sense. Jeff, you are not a power hitter, right? I don't care from your 10 home runs, you're going to hit 15 home runs. That's not going to do enough for what this team needs. They need you to be a 280 plus hitter. If you hit 10 home runs or 11 home runs, but you bat 280, 290, that's going to be huge. So much more helpful than you betting 230 with 3 or 4 more home runs. That's not going to solve the major issue that we have with you. You are best suited to hit for average, have a high on base, and your home runs are 10 to 12. That's where we need you to be. We don't need you to be a 230 hitter, especially where you're going to hit in this lineup, which is bottom third of the order. We need you to get on base. We need you to flip that lineup over to the top of the order again. You're not going to be successful doing that if you're batting 230 with a couple of more home runs and your on base sucks and more strikeouts. Your job at the bottom third of the order is to get on base so you can do your best to flip that lineup over to the top of the order where you can cause the most damage. I'm sorry. If you hit 10 to 12 home runs and you're quote unquote looking for power and trying to hit more home runs leads you to 15 home runs, that 3 home run difference is not going to make or break what this team needs. It really isn't. And it's so frustrating. And with these hitting coaches, maybe Jeff McNeil is just very stubborn, which is a very big possibility, and he doesn't want to do it. But his best seasons was hitting for 290 plus, on bases up, doesn't strike out much, puts the bat on the ball, let the defense make a mistake. That's where Jeff McNeil was at his best. Him still trying to hit for power is going to lead him to losing his job. That's what's going to happen, folks. He's going to lose his job if he's going to continue to try to hit for power because the average is going to be down, the on base is going to be down, and the strikeouts are going to be up. That's what we've been seeing from Jeff McNeil when he's been trying to hit for power over the last 2.5 seasons. That's a freaking problem. Again, Jeff McNeil, for each their own. Do what you want to do. But if you want to lose your job, keep on doing what you're doing because it's not successful. You're not becoming a 25 home run guy. He's not even going to be a 20 home run guy. That's the issue. Like, if you're going to jump from 10 to 20, we can have an adequate conversation about you hitting for more power. But when you're going to hit 10, 11 home runs on regular, when you're just normal Jeff McNeil, and with looking for more power, you're going to hit 15 home runs, that's not a major difference. Now, if you're going to hit 10 to 15 more home runs, now we can have a conversation where, all right, your average can dip a little bit because you're hitting 10 to 15 home runs more. But we all know he's not going to do that. We've been trying this experiment for 2 years now, and you've been a complete disaster. Where you're on the verge of losing your job, where people are talking about freaking Brett Beatty and Luisano Acuna to replace you. That's a huge problem. Again, Jeff McNeil, continue to do what you want to do because it's going to make you lose your job. Oh, well. And I'm going to check the comments again really quick before I hit to the next topic. Yeah, Dick McNeil needs therapy. He needs baseball therapy. He needs somebody that can, a baseball psychologist. That's what he needs. I fully support Jeff McNeil trying to qualify for the U.S. Open. Easy, yeah. If he loses his job, he loses his job again. It's not gonna, it's not gonna hurt my feelings. I tell you that right now, right? Because you'll probably get a better situation with Luisano Acuna. You might not, but people would be more excited to see it. The fact is, he's going to be your opening day starter, right? I don't think, even if Jeff McNeil doesn't have a good spring, I think they're going to start with Jeff McNeil. They're going to give the veteran a chance. Now, from our, opinions about Jeff McNeil will probably piss us off, but they're probably going to give him a couple of weeks, probably even the month of April. And that might leave Acuna down in the minors for a month, where Brett Beatty might get on this roster for a utility role, a super utility guy. So again, I'm not a big fan of what Jeff McNeil's trying to do here. It's been a failed experiment for 2 years. Now he's experimenting with a different bat, with a knob bat instead of a knobless bat, so he can get more length in his swing and get more launch angle to his swing. Because when he has the knobless bat, it's more of a choking up on the bat, and obviously it's harder to get more of the bat on the ball to hit for power. I just don't get it. Jeff McNeil's not a power hitter. We all know that. Again, if he hits 20 home runs, well, he shuts up a lot of people, including myself, and we can have a conversation about you hitting more home runs. But again, you don't do that. Like, you just don't. So Jeff McNeil, I don't know. Good luck. That's all I can say. Listen, I hope you're successful because you're going to help us win if you're successful. But your best years are average and on base. That's how you help this team the most. What he's trying to do now and what he's been trying to do the last couple of seasons has not worked and has actually hurt this team, because that's what's been going on. You've just been failing at this experiment. So Jeff McNeil, good luck, but I don't think you're going to be successful in that area of power. All right, guys, so the offense and bullpen. Why is this the topic? Well, because the offense and bullpen are going to be the keys early on to protecting this now injured rotation, along with the ton of question marks. The offense and the bullpen has to carry them. As much as I don't want the bullpen to be overused, they're probably going to be early on. And you have to win ball games, so I'm not going to, you win ball games, it's great. But again, it will be a problem, especially with the bullpen, when you're overusing them when it comes to the, June, July, August, September, when, you're hanging on for dear life because the bullpen's been heavily used the first couple of months of the season. I think the offense is going to do what the offense does. This offense can be top 3 in the league easily. I think it's the second best lineup other than the Dodgers. I know some people talked about the Phillies. I don't trust the Phillies, to be quite honest with you. I've talked about the Phillies many times. I think they're on a trajectory to not make the playoffs. And the reason why I say that, or be a fringe wildcard team, and fighting for the last wildcard spot, because again, this has been a very similar roster over the last, 3-4 seasons. And they've been slowly getting further and further away from the World Series. They were in the World Series. They lost. They were in the NLCS. They lost in terrible fashion. Then last year, they were in the NLDS and we beat them. So you're on the verge now of being a fringe wildcard team or missing the playoffs. I think the Phillies are at that moment. I know they got Luzardo. They got their rotation. Their rotations is really damn good. But again, when you constantly trickle down and get further and further away from the World Series, we see with teams all the time, regardless of what the roster looks like. It starts to get a little mental at that point. And, losing in the World Series, not the worst thing in the world. You lost to the Astros. They were a very good team. You tip your cap. You had a good chance. The NLCS against the Diamondbacks was an embarrassment. You lost your last 2 games at home, and they made the World Series where you should have easily won. And last year, you weren't supposed to lose to us, and you got embarrassed by us. And mentally, it gets to you. When you start going on a losing streak and you start thinking about, oh, look what happened last year. Look at this. You start to mentally think about it. I think that's where they're going to be. Do I think they might make the playoffs? Yeah, I think they're going to I think they're going to barely make it, but I think they're going to be a fringe playoff team, if not missing it altogether. So when it comes to the New York Mets, the offense is obviously key. I think we all can agree that the offense needs to carry this team, especially with the injuries of the rotation right now and the question marks of the rotation. I think the offense can do that. I think they're top two lineup in baseball, behind the Dodgers. The bullpen, I think, is going to be very good. I don't like to overly use our bullpen early on for the first couple of months of the season, but that seems like it's going to be the case, especially when they're going to try to protect Kodai Senga's innings early on. Who knows what they're going to do with Clay Holmes and protect his innings. And I think David Peterson, they might just let him go, but you just hope he stays healthy because I think David Peterson will be fine. But the bullpen is going to be heavily used. I think they're going to be good. Now, what you want to jump out. What you want to do with the rotation in kind of shambles right now and, going through the motions right now and probably trying to survive rotation-wise, you need to get off to a good start. You need to have a very good April. Because what you do, if you have a good April and you jump out to a really good start, when hopefully Manaea comes back in early May, you get that rotation getting a little bit more healthier. You get your reinforcement in Manaea. You hope Kodai Senga is pitching well and staying healthy, among other guys. Then, you don't have to, really fight and try to, catch up. Because the problem last year was we used so much energy catching up that the whole freaking team burned out basically at the end of the season when it came time to deep into the playoffs. You hope that you don't burn out. That's why you got to get off to a good start. Because if you get off to a good start, let's say, you're 7, 8, 10 games over 500 after the month of April, you can get hurt a little bit in May and not have a crazy, because again, you can have a 500 May and still be 10 games over 500. That's huge, right? And that's the other thing, right? Having a really good month and being 8 to 10 games over 500 in that month, the following month, yeah, it would be great to be another 6, 7 games over 500. But even if you end up being 500 in the month of May, you're still 8, 9, 10 games over 500, which is right where you need to be. Because that's probably where the Braves might be. That's probably where the Phillies, I think, might be a little bit behind, but they might be around there. Having a good month allows you to have a 500 month where you're not killing yourself, where you're 5, 6 games under 500, and now you're back to that 4 or 5 games over 500 record-wise, and that's when you're like, oh, here we go again. But I do like the fact that I think the offense is going to be good. It's going to have to carry this team for a while, and the bullpen has got to pick up the slack of what the rotation is probably not going to give you early on, which is length at the most. And hopefully it's decent pitching where the bullpen can come in with leads, but you're hoping the offense can do that job. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to catch up in the comments here. I think Diaz is going to be damn good. I think the second year after injury, right, that confidence level in the knee is obviously going to be there. It was clear last year that Diaz was worried about his knee, right? it was clear that he was holding back a little bit. That I truly believe that he was scared that he would plant his leg and it would just give out, right? That's always a concern, right? Me, myself being, played a lot of sports, and especially baseball for many years. When I got injured, after I came back, I always thought if I take one step this way, one step that way, it's gonna get hurt again. That's a mental hurdle you have to get over. And I think Diaz had to get over that hurdle last year. And I think it was part of the problem why he had so many blown saves and why he wasn't as good as 2023 or 2022 for that matter, excuse me. This year, 2024, excuse me. And this year, I think he's, not worrying about the knee and only worrying about mowing down hitters. I think he's going to be excellent. And that's why I'm really excited about this bullpen, because the bullpen is very solid. That's why it's probably going to help us with the lack of rotation, with the situation with the rotation right now. So you want the offense to do its thing, and you need the bullpen to pick up the slack of the rotation. I think that is the key early on in the season, right? You got to jump out early in April, because all it's going to help you do is not have to be crazy about, oh my God, we're only 5 games over 500. We got to have a really good May, right? If you get to an 8, 9, 10 games over 500 in the month of April and having a really good April, and guys slowly get healthy, it's going to help you. It's going to help you in that following month where you don't have to go crazy and win 7, 8, 9, 10 games over 500. You would like that, but you can have a 500 month, maybe a couple of games over, a couple of games under, and it's not going to hurt you long term. So that's always hopeful. So offense is going to definitely have to hold it down. The bullpen's got to pick up the slack of the rotation. Last but not least, guys, is the new membership coming soon. I've been working hard on this new membership thing. I want to get it. I want to get one membership, not multiple, just one membership where you pay one price a month and you get all the things that you get as a member, right? I'm going to be doing giveaways once a month for members. Sometimes twice a month for members. I'm going to put new Mets emojis up there. I'm going to put all new ones for the season. Probably going to do a Soto one. Probably going to do a Grimace one. Probably going to do, a couple other LFGMs, Mets logos, and all that fun stuff as well. So if you're a member, you can use that in the chat when you want to. I'm going to be doing weekly Mets reports, just breaking down the week of games for members as a video. For members, you're going to get that exclusively for the majority of that week. Let's say it's Monday through Sunday. That Sunday, you'll get a report, a video of that report. Probably be around 5 to 10 minutes video, just going over recapping the games of the week and talking about what's going on, what we need to do, and blah, 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 and all that stuff. And then that video is going to go public once the members have access to that for the majority of that Sunday. And it'll go public to obviously everybody else, but you're going to get that. I'm also going to do, I'm going to do a couple of other things that I think I'm going to do. I'm going to get like a channel shirt for members. If you're a member, you're going to get a channel shirt. I'm going to do that, put that together as well. Obviously I'll try to get everybody's size and everything like that as well. So we're going to do all that as well. So I'm still working on the price where it is a good, it's not overly expensive, but the price needs to reflect what I need to do here with giveaways and channel members, t-shirts and all that as well. And what I'm going to do with the t-shirt, guys, for members is I'm going to have my channel logo on one side as probably on one of the sides near the chest area. And then on the other side of the chest, I'm going to have channel member. So you're going to have like an exclusive t-shirt, right? It's going to have the logo and it's going to have channel member. And people are going to actually say, hey, where's that shirt? And then, that's obviously how it expands and grows the channel and all that fun stuff as well. And of course, you guys know me and Chris are going to be doing the Amazing Mets pregame show, year 2 of it. And we're also doing the postgame show this year as well. Obviously, schedules, sometimes we're going to be, most of the time we're going to be together. Sometimes we're not. I am going to the opening series in Houston for the first couple of games of the year. So it's going to be crazy. I'm probably going to do a post-game show while I'm walking out of the stadium in Houston. So it's going to be very crazy, right? I'm trying to, there's a friend of mine, and you guys know Grant in the chat. He's a member as well. He runs bars, owns bars in that right around the ballpark area. The Seven Line Army is actually doing their pregame party prior to opening day, the day of on Saturday, where everybody joins up at that bar, drinks, have fun, and then we march to the stadium. We're doing that. What I'm going to try to do, hopefully it works out, and I'll talk to Grant about it. I'll probably text him over the next couple of days because we're getting closer and closer to that. And Brad, you're welcome, buddy. I always appreciate it. Thank you for the super chat. You want a car? Buy one. I'm sorry. So what I'm trying to do, I want to do a pregame show at Grant's bar prior to opening day and prior to all the games at in Houston, right? I'll try to do that. Obviously, that's going to be a little nuts. I do have a hotel basically right next to the stadium. So, if I have to pack up everything, run to the hotel, and then run back to the stadium, I'll do that. I want to do the pregame show at the bar because that would be cool with the atmosphere, with doing a live show with Chris on the pregame show at a bar prior to a game, right? I think opening day, I think it's at 3:00 or 2:00 Texas time. So it would be 1 or 2 o'clock here. What is it? A 1 hour difference, 2 hour difference? I don't freaking know. Well, what time is it in Texas? The hell do I know? Let me see. Hold on. Okay, it's an hour difference. All right. So I think the game starts at 2:00. I don't even see. I got to know this stuff because again, the time difference is going to kill me. Let me just double check really quick, guys. I just want to make sure. Hold on. All right. Here we go. That's what I was looking for. All right, here we go. March 27th. So the game, the game is at 4:10 in New York. So it would be 3:10 in Houston. So great. That works out perfectly because I'm probably flying in on Wednesday, the day before, so I can, get situated, maybe do some sightseeing in Houston or around Texas and all that stuff, which I'll probably do. And then what I want to do, I want to make sure I get into, obviously, the stadium somewhat early on opening day because, I want to walk around the stadium. I've never been to Houston before. The one time I was going to go to Houston with the Seven Line Army, they had that hurricane. And that was 2021, 2022, or 2019, whatever it was. But I want to go into the stadium, walk around, get some food, take in the vibes of opening day in a new stadium because that's going to be, I think, my 13th, 14th stadium around baseball. So that's pretty cool. So I'm going to try to probably do a pregame early, like around 12 o'clock or so, give or take. Probably 11:30. That might be safer. Do an hour pregame show at the bar, bring my stuff back to the hotel, and then run back to the stadium. So it's going to be fun. Going to be very hot and sweaty, but hey, it's baseball. Who cares? So that's what I'm going to do, guys. So hopefully it works out that the pregame show is going to be at the bar prior to opening day, prior to all the games in Houston. That's going to be a lot of fun with the vibes. There's going to be a lot of Mets fans there. So you get the vibes of the sound of the bar and me doing a pregame show with Chris. It's going to be, hopefully that's going to work out. And it's going to be fun. So I still got to work that out with Grant. I just want to make, I know he's probably going to do a lot of planning with all the people rushing to his bar. So I don't want to take, money out of his hand to worry about my silly little show when he's trying to make money and trying to get people in there and trying to do what he needs to do with the plan for a ton of people running up on the opening day and opening series. So with that said, guys, look out for the membership over the next week or so. The membership is going to be ready to go prior to the season. I just want to get everything perfect before I actually step up with the new membership, and I'll let you guys know. So, guys, thank you for watching another Mets Spring Training report right here on the channel. Hit that like button, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you're not a subscriber as of yet, and I'll probably do a show tomorrow. We'll see. Have a good night, guys. Let's go Mets. It's always a pleasure talking to you guys. These solo shows are always fun. Have a good night, guys. Let's go Mets, and I'll see you next time. Good night, guys. Let's go Mets.
City lights in the dead of night, full of echo. Concrete jungle, dreams bust to grow. Mets in the air, chase glory.